the escaped income has to be brought back to be invested again.
अच्छा, हाँ हाँ, वो भी होता होगा, I think.
So most often you catch escapement of income when it is coming back to the books.
Okay.
It's difficult to catch the when it is going out.
It
is easier to catch when it comes back. So what happens is that, like, you have 100 taxpayers. So out of those 100 taxpayers, you'll pick cases of the 2 taxpayers, and you will audit their financials.
Right.
TDS is tax deducted at source, and globally, for wider audience to understand, it's called withholding tax.
Right.
Tax which has been withheld. So withholding tax, or TDS as it is known in India. So for that we have a specific vertical which conducts these surveys as well. सबसे easy जो है tax evasion का technique business में ये होता है कि you increase the expenses. So revenue is your top line. Expenses will determine your bottom line. You squeeze the profit by increasing the bottom line.
Today with us we have Kavinder Singh Negi, a 2015 batch Indian Revenue Services Officer who is currently serving as the Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax in the Delhi headquarters. He has previously also worked in the assessment as well as the investigation verticals of the Revenue Department. He has done his BTech from NIT Hamirpur and holds an MBA degree from IIM Lucknow. In this episode of Sushasan, we will be discussing all about the Indian Revenue Services, how the search and seizure operations are undertaken by the investigation vertical of the IT department, what goes behind the scene once you file your income tax return, and much more. Do watch out for this episode of Sushasan. A very warm welcome Kavinder ji to this episode of Sushasan. बहुत सौभाग्य है कि मैं आपको आज इंटरव्यू कर पा रहा हूँ. So before we start, just would want to first up ask कि आपका यूपीएससी देने का और सिविल सर्विसेज आने का क्या मेन उद्देश्य था और क्या आपका मोटिवेशन था?
देखिए, मेरी पहले इंजीनियरिंग की पढ़ाई रही है. आफ्टर दैट आई डिड एमबीए. तो आई वर्कड इन द कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर. मैंने बैंकिंग सेक्टर में काम किया था फॉर अराउंड 2 years. So while working in Delhi NCR only, I realized that this is not something which was adding value to the society, and it was also not something I was liking while working upon it. So during that period, and I'll also add that I come from a rather non-urban background. So somewhere I realized that entire corporate world will not be a good fit for me. And then I saw some of my batchmates who were already preparing for civil services or who had cleared by then. I saw that they were starting to become, you can say, role models among young people and in their community. So that was the initial point. And then after that, I started preparing for the civil services. Another thing is that family background also somewhere comes in, because while studying in engineering or MBA, I was very clear I'll go to the corporate sector and I'll make big bucks. But my father is a paramilitary officer.
Okay.
So my impression of working as an adult was borrowed from his experiences, what I saw him doing. So somewhere that pulled me back to the government sector, and then I realized that the best shot and best way to enter, at best level to enter, is to give civil services.
आपने मेंशन किया कि आपने एमबीए भी किया है. थोड़ा ये रेयर होता है कि लोग एमबीए करने के बाद सिविल सर्विसेज दें, बिकॉज एक तो होता है कि जनरली एमबीए लोग इसलिए करते हैं कि कॉर्पोरेट जॉब में अच्छी खासी नौकरी लगे, एंड एंड ऑल्सो लोन काफी लोग ले चुके होते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ ऑब्वियसली द फी स्ट्रक्चर बीइंग हाई. सो ऐसा कैसे आपका मोटिवेशन आया कि एमबीए के बाद यूपीएससी देने का आपको एकदम से मन किया?
ऐसा इसलिए आया बिकॉज टिल एमबीए आई वाज नॉट थिंकिंग ऑफ गेटिंग इनटू गवर्नमेंट सर्विस. It's only when I started working, because I did MBA right after my engineering. I didn't have any work experience.
Okay.
So when I went into the corporate world, then only I realized that my heart lies somewhere else. But इसके साथ ही आप जो लोन वाला पॉइंट बोल रहे हैं वो मैंने भी फेस किया था. That's the exact reason why I never left the job. Okay. So I continued working. Prior to joining civil services, I was working with SEBI. Okay. I cleared their exam and I was working there for a while, for around 2 years. So loan obviously is a big burden after MBA, and then that makes it difficult for you to leave the job. So that a lot of people face. But in the services I've seen, there are a lot of MBAs now. There are a large number of MBAs. Right. Obviously, engineers are larger in number, but there are a lot of MBAs in the services.
जी, got it. So I think one interesting insight for our viewers is that there's no specific time frame जिसके बाद UPSC का आपको शौक आ सकता है और आप you are better poised at giving किसी भी stage of your life when you make a decision कि मेरे को यहाँ जाना है, they can start.
Obviously, the age limit should be there.
Yeah.
So I think one should take 2-3 years before that age limit one should start. But I think ideally 25 साल से पहले शुरू कर देना चाहिए. मैंने 25 साल से पहले किया था. Too late, my personal opinion, not good. But yeah, earlier you do is good because in the services you'll go further. But yes, from a individual's motivation point of view, जब आप जागो तभी सवेरा है. So I think what matters more like anything else in life is that आपके अंदर कितनी आग है उसको करने के लिए, कितना डेडिकेशन है. तो मोटिवेशन शुड बी योर ओन. इट शुड नॉट बी लाइक समवन एल्सेस. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि मेरे पिताजी चाहते थे तो मैंने किया. मेरे पिताजी तो बचपन से चाहते थे कि सिविल सर्विस करे क्योंकि ही वाज ऑफ दैट मोल्ड. बट व्हेन आई रियलाइज्ड कि मुझे करना है, देन ओनली आई वेंट अहेड. So that I think is important कि आपके अंदर जब भी जागो बट आपके खुद का जागना होना चाहिए, दूसरे ने आपको मोटिवेट नहीं किया. Because the preparation of civil, I have given other exams also and I got into IIM NIT. I can tell you this exam is most torturous in the sense, it's you have to work harder, you have to work for longer period like 2 years plus at least. So in a sense this exam takes a lot out of you, and especially during that period where you were supposed to be working. Supposed to be earning and contributing to the economy and earning for your family. So in that sense, it opportunity cost of this preparation is very high for any educated and well qualified person. So yeah, that drive, that arc, that should be inside.
जी. So आपने पहले बीटेक करी, फिर MBA किया. Just after बीटेक आपने बताया कि without work experience you went into IIM Lucknow, one of the most prestigious MBA colleges of the country. Then after that आप SEBI में गए, and then subsequent to that you went to the Indian Revenue Services. So what was that journey like कि MBA के बाद SEBI देना and SEBI में कुछ साल काम करके फिर UPSC देना? How did that decision came about being कि पहले ये देना है फिर वो एग्जाम देना है?
So as I told you, till MBA, I was not thinking about going into the government service. It's very clear. I wanted to go into the corporate, because most of my people around me were doing that. So I got motivated through them only. But yes, after MBA, I didn't go directly to SEBI. I worked in the corporate sector. While working there, I realized, so before SEBI only, I realized that my heart lies somewhere else, that is civil services.
Got it.
So before that, I started preparing. But obviously, I was not getting time. So meanwhile, I got this notification. I saw it in the newspaper for SEBI. So I gave that exam. When I entered the SEBI, I was already motivated for civil service. So I was already in this process of preparing. So like unlike corporate job, weekends were with me in the SEBI. So that gave me a lot of time. I worked for 2 years in the corporate and 2 years in SEBI. So around the SEBI, my duration with the SEBI, I was mainly preparing for civil services. Motivation came before that. I was motivated for civil services immediately because of the way I was working in a corporate and my expectation of what I'll do as an adult and what I was doing. The gap between the two motivated me to prepare for civil service. Yeah, and there was obviously the non-urban background I told you and my father's background. So that helped me. And I shall add another thing. I don't know how relevant it is, but I was always good with general knowledge. So I even when I was working with the corporate, I knew in the general studies I'll have certain head start. So that also motivated me.
Got it. So one of the services that people generally do not know about and बहुत mischiefs के around is the revenue services, right? IAS, IPS के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा news में भी रहता है, बहुत सारे और videos बने रहते हैं. So I think first up, I'd like to also ask a lot of questions about the revenue services. So can you tell for our viewers कि IRS officers जो होते हैं, what are the key roles and responsibilities of a IRS officer?
I'll start by talking about why certain services are more visible and certain services are not. Because you talked about IAS, IPS and IRS only. There are around 10-15 more services, audit and account service, civil account services, railway services, multiple railway services till recently. So what shapes the public perception and understanding is the way the role is structured. So IAS and IPS are all India services, unlike our services, which is central services. So they have more public interaction. So the preference of candidates who opt for the services is largely determined by the extent of public interaction. So more the public interaction, that service will be preferred more. All India services, because they work with the state and center as well, so they get into the leadership role. and obviously they run district administration very early in their career. Their visibility in the local, in that district level or state level is high. And recently with social media, their visibility is even higher among the aspirants. So the nature of this service, nature of the post they take is very different.
Right.
So revenue service is less understood, like civil account services is also less understood. Like most of the railway services are also less understood. Audit account services also less understood. Indian information services are also less understood. So we all are central services.
Okay.
What happens in the central services? Revenue services, the two revenue services are probably the most, they provide most public exposure. So that's why among central services, they are one of the preferred services. Right. Now coming on to the role and responsibility of IRS officers. So this was my learning curve as well. After entering academy only, I learned about it. So I'll start with the designations as they proceed. Then I'll talk about skill sets that we require, and then I'll talk about different verticals. When we enter the service, initially we are assistant commissioner.
Ji.
And after 4 years in the service, we become deputy commissioner.
Right.
Then after 5 years as deputy commissioner, you become joint commissioner. Then total 12 years of service, or rather 3 years as a joint commissioner, you become additional commissioner. After that, within 17 years, you become commissioner, and then principal commissioner, then chief commissioner, then principal chief commissioner. After that, you have board members and chairman of the board.
Okay.
So equivalent rank of assistant commissioner to people who are more familiar with the post in IAS and IPS. So an assistant commissioner is equivalent to, like, you can say SDM or ADM.
Yes.
Deputy commissioner is ADM, additional DM. And joint commissioner is the rank of deputy magistrate or SP, you can say. After that, additional commissioner will be like senior SP. Commissioner is very clear rank, which is equivalent to the JS in the ministry,
right,
of Government of India.
Right.
After that, additional secretary rank, PCIT, then additional secretary, there are two bands, then special secretary, then secretary, yes, Government of India. So there's a benchmarking for each post. So we proceed, and largely the ground work or the field work is done by deputy commissioners and assistant commissioners, the initial two posts. So joint commissioner is a supervisor. After that, supervisory role begins. So I'll talk about now the different verticals of income tax department. So income tax department in India is largely oriented towards assessments.
Right.
So assessment is actually what globally is known as audit. So what happens is that, like, you have 100 taxpayers. So out of those 100 taxpayers, you'll pick cases of the 2 taxpayers, and you will audit their financials.
Right.
So now what happens is their financials and their tax liability is determined by their own accountant, in-house accountant, or the accountant who was hired by them, CA. So this is a mechanism, the assessment or audit is a mechanism through which we verify whether this has been prepared fairly and any escapement of income is there or not, and then we fix liability. So today, though things are changing, today our department is largely structured. Sometime back, 80% of our workforce were there. Now 60% of our workforce is still engaged in assessments. So you can imagine assessment as a, like a business who has filed a return. After 2 years, if there will be some issues, so these issues are picked by, earlier there was human intervention, now the issues are picked by computer generated
reports. Yeah.
So they pick up certain fields which are higher than expected, or they should not be there, or some other inputs, like you have 26 AS, there you have other information, AIS. So based on those criteria, there's automatically selected cases which come to the ACs and DCs. And these cases are directly dealt by assistant commissioner, deputy commissioners, and then ITOs, which is feeder cadre for the service. So largely we do assessment. Recently,
ITOs kya hue?
ITOs are income tax officers.
Income tax officers. Okay.
Just one rank below assistant commissioner. They are group D services.
Okay.
We call them feeder cadre because ITOs get promoted as ACs later in their services.
So and iska alag exam or alag recruitment process hota hoga iska?
ITOs are promoted from inspectors. Inspectors are recruited through SSC.
Understood.
So. And now coming on to the other verticals. So I talked about investigation vertical. So investigation vertical is which is the most visible vertical of department. So when you hear these, that some raids have been conducted by the department, though they are not raids technically, they are search and seizure operations. So they are typically conducted by investigation department. So investigation has the task of outright stoppage of escapement of income. I know someone is evading the income and not paying proper taxes. I'll prepare the case. I'll do fields. I'll gather the intelligence, and then I prepare a case. And on that day, we'll conduct a raid or search and seizure operation.
Right.
So this is one of the, and on the basis of the information I gathered, within 60 days or so, we prepare a report and share it with central charges, which does assessment of only those cases where a search action has taken place.
Okay.
It also does assessment, but assessment of only those cases where a search operation has been taken.
Okay.
Or during the search operation, if some information about any taxpayer has come up, that taxpayer also is assessed in central charges.
Okay.
Apart from central charges, we have TDS charge, where TDS certificates are also given, and
TDS is tax deducted at source.
Yeah, TDS is tax deducted at source, and globally, for wider audience to understand, it's called withholding tax.
Right.
Tax which has been withheld. So withholding tax, or TDS as it is known in India. So for that we have a specific vertical which conducts TDS surveys as well, and provides TDS certificates. So not much assessment is done there. Apart from that, in field we have international tax, where assessment of foreign income or entities which have conducted transaction with foreign entities. We call it arm's length pricing, which is in economics also a lot of now graduates study about it. So domestic companies as well, which are having related party transactions,
right,
they also have some of their cases with international taxation.
Alag department hota hai.
It's a different vertical.
Vertical.
Yeah. So apart from these field charges, we have directorates and then board postings.
Right.
So directorates, obviously there's one HRD, human resource development. There is an administration department vertical, sorry, and we have one specialized, not directorate, but entity under board, which are headed by joint secretaries. It is foreign tax and tax research, FTNTR. This is mainly related with the treaty and exchange of information, and you can say they are like tax diplomats.
Right.
So this is one of the division. Apart from that, you have postings in the board, where you work as secretarial staff for the board, because there are a lot of huge volume of data. And
what is the board exactly, if you can?
Board, so the board constitutes of 6 members and a chairman.
Okay.
The chairman and there are 6 members. The work, investigation work is given to one member.
Understood.
Administration is given to one. Vigilance is given to one. So differently, and there's a Directorate of Vigilance as well.
Right.
So that looks after the cases of vigilance. So board, these members are assisted by junior officers of the rank of commissioners, also of the rank of deputy commissioners.
Understood.
This is called as board posting or secretarial posting.
Right.
I am working in the field, but I am not in the board or in the directorate. I work in the administration. So there's there are 20 plus, I'm forgetting the right name, 20 plus principal commissioner, chief commissioners, who head each region. So largely they are confined to the limits of the states, but not necessarily. So in Delhi, there's one principal chief commissioner who heads entire operations of income tax in Delhi. I'm in his office. I work as a deputy commissioner, headquarters, administration. So my role majorly is to look after the security of the buildings, transfer postings, and all other related, you can say administrative, HR, and other related and financial work. So that I look after presently.
So I think काफी एक तरह से comprehensively we got to know of different verticals of the revenue department. I think एक आपने बताया is the field postings हैं बहुत सारी non-field postings. I think, and within that you were saying assessment is there. There's the जो search and seizure का investigation करते हैं, and then there's international law के related also vertical. And within the जो हम लोग का non-field posting है, it's basically a lot of admin work, a lot of human resource work will be there, which will also be supporting the field officers in some way or the other. Understood. Right, now coming to the ambit of what kind of work does an IRS officer do? Right, how would you say is different from, say, an Indian Audit Account Service officer? Because you also mentioned that there's auditing also which happens by the revenue officers of some sort. So थोड़ा वो अगर differentiate कर पाए हम लोग के लिए.
So I think, because I think about it, so one confusion is a lot of account services are there. So there's Indian Economic Service as well. So there are 2 revenue services.
Yes.
So in terms of specialization, broadly, if you say, we all are dealing with finance or accounts. So what specifically is different with IRS income tax vis-a-vis audit and account? We all are looking after balance sheets and P&L, and that kind of confusion emanated in my mind as well initially. So revenue service is a financial legal service,
Okay.
Indian Revenue Income Tax Service specifically.
Hmm.
I told you we have administrative work as well, but that is less than 20% of our work, even 10% of our work.
Hmm.
So if I'll say a typical IRS officer, what should be his skill sets? He should be master of these two things. He should be expert of law and finance or accounting, you can say, both, because accounting you have to understand. So these are required because I talked about assessment or audit. So that work, what is that work? The input to is an ITR, that's it. You have balance sheet, you have P&L. Now you have to understand what is wrong in it. So to understand that, first of all, you need the understanding of accounting. You need to understand what is debit, what is credit.
Correct.
So in that way, we are having skill sets which are with the account services as well, many account services. But then you need to know about Income Tax Act through and through, because that is applied. So that after understanding so I'm not preparing accounts. If I'm just preparing the account, then my legal part is less, accounting part is larger. But now after preparing the account, I have to understand what is the escapement of income, where are the issues. So in that sense, a typical IRS officer should be expert of these two things. Law, yes, law largely of Income Tax Act, but not necessarily, because Income Tax Department also administers Black Money Act, Benami Act. So also, if I move from assessment largely to investigation, then you have to also understand different criminal acts. You have to understand Evidence Act, because now you are conducting an operation where you're gathering evidence as well. So largely legal, and within that also, let's say 80% or 70% Income Tax Act, but yes, 20-30% different other acts you have to understand. And let's say 40% in total, you have to understand accounts and finance. So this is the skill set. I don't think an account service person is too much into the law. Generally, and specifically into income tax act. So that way we are differentiated. And then we have these treaties, OECD treaties, and different materials which are specific to FT&TR and international tax. So you develop that expertise in that field. And like FT&TR, I think more than act, you have to read the bilateral treaties. You have to understand how OECD structured draft. There's a general, what I believe, general bilateral treaty, which is amended for, structured specifically for individual countries. So you have to understand that. So you have to become expert of that.
Right. Now that we've discussed a lot about the IRS service itself, क्या skill set चाहिए होती हैं, how is the training curated for that? Because after qualifying for the exam, you would have gone to the training. So how was that experience for you? Because I think 4 months initially, so it is I think the foundation course रहता है, and subsequent to that, there's a specific curated training program for about 14-16 months. So can you please tell us, taking us down the memory lane, how was your experience of training and क्या चीजें वहाँ पे कराई जाती हैं?
I arrived at NIT as a veteran because I have been living in hostels since 11th. So for me, going into the hostel or an academy was not a new thing. Yeah, and the training is 16 months long. That within that they're sandwiched on-job trainings. One is 2 months long, another is 2 months long, one is 15-day long. So we have these on-job trainings as well. Content largely, you are taught basic accounts. Start with the debit and credit, and it's not exactly everyone is becoming master of it or not. I'm not sure, but yeah, the motive of the training is to make everyone master of accounts. So that is one part. Then, as I mentioned, legal aspects. So there are two aspects to the law. We are taught by in-house faculties. I don't know how is it right now, but how it was done to us. We are taught by in-house faculty about Income Tax Act. Okay. So there are different kind of income, capital gains, income from other property sources, income from house property. So different topics are taken up in detail. We are taught about sample cases we are given, or dummy cases rather I shall call. So we are made to work upon that. And we are made to write assessment orders where we have found the escapement of income or not. Okay. Apart from that, general law also we have to understand. So we were given a course which is postgraduate diploma in business law by NLSUI Bangalore. Okay. So that was their faculty from Bangalore flew and taught us. I think there was weekly a class from them. So that is how other wider law was taught to us. Apart from this, largely training is written around that. But yes, apart from that, we have different other aspects for development of individual. We have like Himalayan tracks.
Right.
We have attachment with police. Some batches have attachment with army as well. Recently they have got. We got to meet the president, prime minister during our parliamentary attachments. Meet the senior ministers, prime minister and finance minister. So largely this, and on-job training is where you will sit with ITOs, assistant commissioner, joint commissioner, and see what they are doing on the field, what work they are doing. So there's a handbook that we have to fill. So in that sense, the training is detailed and I think well targeted because the kind of skill set that you require.
So on the job training जो आपने बताया, उसको अगर थोड़ा elaborate कर सकें कि what all is done throughout that 2 months time duration, किस किस जगह पे आप जाते हैं और किस किस टाइप की वहां पे आपको चीजें देखने को मिलते हैं which helps you out while you are on the job later on and serving full time as an officer.
So on the job training there are 2 on the job trainings.
Okay.
At least they were like this earlier, but I think now it's only one on the job training where they have combined everything. So as I mentioned, you different verticals. So the purpose of on the job training is to take you on a tour of all the verticals.
Right.
So you spend like a week or so with each vertical. So with assessment, when I'm there, I'll be looking at live files. I'll be trying to understand the case. I'll be looking at the live scrutiny reports that the assessing officer is sending in the cases which are in appeal stage, in litigation. I'll be looking at the system where the entries are being made, where actually the data is being pushed by the systems directorate of ours. So there's a live work that you have to do. You are expected to be working on certain system or to see the things. And similarly, you will go to different verticals. I failed to mention one of the verticals, which is we also present cases before ITAT. That is income tax appellate tribunal. So the cases where in the assessment cases where assessing officer has determined the escapement of income. Let's say I've determined that you are out of 100 rupees, you have not paid 80. So I've increased your tax liability to 100 from 20. So that you can contest before a CIT appeal, that is Commissioner of Income Tax Appeal, that is first appellate. And then you go to ITAT, that is Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. So there you contest if CIT appeal is against you. His or her order is against you. So the point I was coming to is department also has commissioner and additional commissioner rank officers who represent their case of department before Income Tax Appellate Tribunal.
Okay.
So we have attachments with these offices as well. So there we'll see the live cases, we'll go to the hearing of the cases.
Okay.
We can become the audience there.
Interesting.
So, and there's another Director of Systems. There also we'll see at the latest projects, because Directorate of System is very important. That is the directorate, that is the vertical of Income Tax Department, which is responsible for upkeep and management of e-filing portal, which is used by large people. I failed to mention that directorate earlier. It is one of the most important directorate, one of the very big directorates, vertical in the Income Tax Department. So there also we go and we understand different projects that are being undertaken and how technology is being used by the department. And in that sense, I should cover one aspect, especially Income Tax Department in India is at the cutting edge when it comes to application of technology.
Yeah.
So managing e-filing portal with so many users, crores of users, and ensuring that it works, that it is working is a huge challenge.
Yes.
So,
and I think as a taxpayer myself, I find it to be a very user friendly and a very seamless process to, and a very intuitive process now to file taxes. Ek samay it was a very, tedious task. Up to I think having done it myself multiple times in the last few years, I think it's a very seamless process that has been created.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I initially forgot to mention this directorate, this vertical. This vertical is doing very good job. Yeah. And I think as a user, you can say, I am also a user in my personal capacity, but I'll say, I don't think any other department, any other vertical, any other department, or you can say government organization is doing that well when it comes to implementation of technology for creating more user-friendly interface.
Correct. So now that we are at it, I think I had a very question दिमाग में आया मेरे कि when someone files an income tax and generally around March के करीब बहुत लोग भरते हैं, what is the background around it कि एक बार जब भर जाता है फिर क्या होता है before someone gets a final confirmation कि हाँ everything is assessment सही है कि नहीं है, या इसमें कुछ गड़बड़ है, आप पैसा इतना वापस आना है या आपको और पैसा इतना देना है. What all steps happen in the background? Because a lot of time ऐसा भी होता है कि इमीडिएटली इन 10-15 डेज आ जाएगा, कभी-कभी 1-2 महीने लग जाते हैं वापस आने में. तो ऐसा क्या हो रहा होता है पीछे इन द बैकग्राउंड दैट इट टेक्स सो मच टाइम समटाइम्स?
No, I think you should say time is decreasing now.
हाँ,
So it's very
हाँ.
less. I think 7 days.
Yeah.
So the process is automated.
Yeah.
So when you file the return and you verify it by digital signature. So after that, this return goes to systems. We have a vertical in Bangalore, which is under Directorate of System only, which looks after this. And there, basically, system only processes it.
Okay.
So all the fields are checked. And I think for 99.8% of the people, it is verified by the system. And it's, I think, in 7 days or so.
Yes.
It is processed. And refund might take some time, maybe due to, there might be, because I have not worked in that vertical, but the process, you were asking about different steps. When you open the ITR, your e-filing portal, you can see those processes.
Yeah.
There's already those steps, and they are all done by the system only.
Okay.
System means that automated. So no individual intervention.
So is there any scope for individual intervention? Any place की लग रहा है कि कुछ गड़बड़ है तो तब होता है ऐसा कुछ?
So what happens is that when your return is filed and you reach till the stage where your refund is being processed, your ITR has been processed and processed under 143(1)(a) of Income Tax Act. Government or Income Tax Department has right to reopen your case if it finds fault later on. Okay. So human intervention, not exactly human intervention, but I told you about scrutiny cycles.
Yes.
That are also automated, but they are run after this. So they are run under 143(2). So they are done, and after that, if there's some anomaly in your return, your ITR will be picked. But that happens for, I think, 0.2 or 0.02% of the cases. Yeah. So human intervention begins after this.
Okay. Got it. कविंदर जी, सो जो आप ट्रेनिंग फेज आपका खत्म हुआ होगा, उसके बाद जो फर्स्ट पोस्टिंग आपकी रही थी वाज द डेप्यूटी कमिश्नर ऑफ इनकम टैक्स, कॉर्पोरेट एंड नॉन कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स असेसमेंट. सो व्हाट वाज अ टिपिकल डे लुकिंग लाइक जब आपने वहां पे स्टेप इन किया, एंड क्या आप वहां पे रिस्पांसिबिलिटीज होल्ड करते थे?
So these were two postings, non-corporate then corporate, but essentially the job profile was the same. So I'll cover them together. So one assessment officer, the deputy commissioner of corporate or non-corporate circle is assessing officer typically. So my primary job was to look at the returns of 100 or so cases which were allotted to me within a year. So there's a time barring. These cases are time barred cases. That means on 31st of December or 31st of March, they'll get time barred. Before that, I have to complete these assessment cases. So primarily my job was that to look at their financials, their ITRs, and understand their cases. There would be some reasons because they were picked. On the basis of those reasons, I have to evaluate whether escapement of income is there or not. So as I mentioned earlier as well, it's accounting, financial, legal job. So that was my job. While working there, typically I was assisted by 2-3 inspectors and other official staff, clerical staff. I would report typically to a joint commissioner or additional commissioner, and in turn that joint commissioner or additional commissioner will report to a PCIT. So apart from assessment, which was the bulk of the job, let's say 80% of the job, there are other things which are parallelly running. So there, one thing is that refund. As you know, many SSCs who have not got their refund, the processing of their refund was also through me. So they'll put their request. Then there was other part, that is rectification. So there might be some orders, some assessment orders where there might be some error. So that is also rectified as per the provision of Income Tax Act. That was also I was taking up. Then there must be some cases in litigation. Like my predecessor must have passed certain orders which are under litigation with Commissioner Appeals or ITT or even High Court. So a part of my job was to understand those cases from the past and prepare scrutiny reports on them. And then certain cases will be within the litigation where the case has been set aside to me. Upon set asiding, that means their case has been sent back to me. Again, they became an assessment case for me. So largely this was my job. Then additionally, I was also looking after the collection of taxes. So that is also, we have to monitor the our tax base. We have to see whether we are growing, because government sets the target. So that target is percolated to the circles. So I have to check that if my targets are increasing by the projection or not. So that is also a job that we have to do. Connected to that, our job was to conduct outreaches as well. So outreaches
what are these outreach programs?
Yeah. So outreach is not mandatory for us to do, but outreach is recently being very stressed upon by the establishment, by the department, because it is encouraging people to come up and pay due taxes. So we conducted 2-3 outreach programs. When I was assessing officer of Chandni Chowk, we conducted 2-3 outreach programs. So some maybe general outreach program where we are taking an open jeep, we are with a loudspeaker, we are motivating everyone to file taxes, that the date of filing self-assessment tax is coming up, date of filing your TDS returns are coming up. So we encourage them like this. And there were some which were very specific, like there's a huge billion trader community business in Chandni Chowk. So we conducted one for them. So the idea is to find those sectors where you feel taxes are not as per the the business movement and business size and activity. So you just encourage them. So outreach is out and out encouragement to the people, telling them, sensitizing them. We tell them that the money that you are paying is being used for the development of the nation. So it's more like an education program as well. So, and they have been proven very effective in certain places. So this was certain few things that we have taken up. And parallelly, as a assessing officer, you can conduct survey operations also, which are different from search and seizure.
किस टाइप के सर्वे हैं ये?
So I'll distinguish between the two. Search and seizure operations can only be conducted by the investigation wing. Here you can enter someone's residential premise as well. You can seize cash and anything. Survey is a limited sort of action where you can only go to someone's business premises and cannot seize their cash. So you can say it's a toned down version of search and seizure operation. So that are also being conducted. I have conducted some as an assessing officer.
So as an assessing officer, you have the power to do survey, but not search and seizure.
Not search and seizure.
But that will be by the investigation
division.
Okay.
So those also I conducted. So a typical day would be like largely you will be busy with assessment. With the files, you will be having hearing. SSC, the representatives of SSC will come. But obviously, throughout the day, there will obviously there is also another part, that is grievance redressal. So grievance redressal is also taken up by the assessing officer. So 20% of the time, or depending on the if some litigation is of higher importance, then maybe some days are spent entirely on that. But overall, in a year, 20 to 30% time is spent in non-assessment works, which are preparing scrutiny report for litigation, conducting preparing and conducting survey reports, monitoring tax collections, and then what I mentioned, monitoring tax collection, and then
outreach
programs, and likewise.
Understood. Right. So now आपने बड़े interesting बताया कि there's a difference between a survey and conducting the investigation. But I'm assuming that क्योंकि आप assess कर रहे हैं, अगर आपको कुछ गड़बड़ दिखी, तो like are those things then shared with the respective investigation department? अगर उस पे उनको कुछ action लेना है, is there that kind of a communication या कैसे होता है इसमें?
If you have discovered anything, information, you are duty bound to share it.
मतलब obviously.
So with not necessarily with the investigation division only, but with the assessing officer of that other SSC.
Okay.
Like if I'm assessing a case, so for that case, so I am responsible.
Yes.
But if I got information about case B, so I'm duty bound to inform about that. Not only about escapement of income. If I find some criminal issue as well, I'm duty bound to report it to CBI or any other organization or of concern. So that is obviously that happens.
नहीं, so but इसमें जैसे आपने मान लिया कुछ आपके केस है, उसमें कुछ आपने assessment करते समय गड़बड़ पाई, but as an assessing officer you don't have that authority to do search and seizure there. So आप क्या किसी like उस department को respected department को बताएंगे, and then they will go and do that.
Obviously, if I can I have information which can be covered with survey. Ideally, I should conduct a survey.
Right.
But if the scope of escapement and there's a huge nexus, there are a lot of other entities involved, then I have to report it to the investigation division through proper channel, through my bosses.
Got it. Right. So after this first posting, then you were in the investigation vertical yourself, right? And within the as a deputy director of the investigation vertical, वहां पे अभी अब क्या responsibilities हुई? I think 3 साल आप रहे. How was that journey like? And आपको कैसे different लगा from the assessment time of yours?
So in single word, single sentence, assessment is more of an office job.
Huh.
Investigation is more of a field job, or you know, you have to be on the ground.
Right.
So investigation in that limited sense of escapement of income is wider. Limited to the escapement of income, but wider in that domain only, because now your focus is entirely on that. So investigation division, I mentioned earlier as well, it looks after search and seizure operation. They can also conduct survey. So they can club it with the searches. So largely this search and seizure operation. So my experience when I went from assessment to investigation earlier was that you have to work for longer hours. You are expected to be in office for longer period. You have to. You are expected to go onto the fields more often. You are expected to gather more information, intelligence, and in one sense, it is more fulfilling than assessment, that you can begin and end it from in toto. So you pick up an issue. In assessment, you are looking after only one particular year. Here you can pick up an issue and you can, like, to the extent act allows you, you can open the cases. You can find the escapement of income and open the cases. So you can get the whole view of the operation of a business to understand where the leakages are, where the escapements are. Apart from that, there are other tasks as well in investigation. So in investigation, we have Black Money Act also.
Right.
So the information might emanate from an action only, search action only, but treatment of income that has escaped in the past and is invested somewhere outside India is taken up by the Black Money division. Right. So that is different within investigation division only, but different act. And there's Benami unit as well, where you find Benami property, then you refer it to the Benami unit.
Understood.
Then there are informations like Pandora papers, Panama papers you might have heard. Of course. So these information are also diverted to the investigation division only.
Okay.
So they are pushed, whatever information the department has as a whole, it is taken up and pushed to the investigation division, and then they are assigned to the officers working, deputy directors, they are assigned to them, and then you have to through investigation, you can summon these people, you can summon their representative and take up the case. So these investigations are also conducted. So I want to just clarify that it's not only that you conduct raids.
Yeah.
So raids are, you do a lot of raids, but the search and seizure operations, but they are not that large part of your job. You can conduct investigation by summoning people, by requisitioning information from them. So a large part of your time is spent on those, and a large part of your time is spent on cases pushed like this. Then there are certain reports sent by banks as well. So let's say a daily wager somewhere has opened a bank account, and the bank knows through KYC that he's daily wager or a man of not huge means, but they can in his account, if they notice that there are a lot of transaction happening, crores of rupees are being transacted, then that bank specifically can raise alarm or report and share automatically with the department. This is called STR, suspicious transaction report.
Okay.
These are also sent to the department.
Okay.
And then again, individuals can also file tax evasion petitions, TEPs. They are also given to the investigation division.
Okay.
So whole lot of you suo moto also take up cases when you understand the market. Largely this, and again here you are assisted by 4 or 5 inspectors in your team, not huge manpower, and you report to an additional or joint director who in turn reports to principal director.
So the reason to have a small team is it कि बहुत discretion रखना होता है, मतलब बहुत लोगों को बता देंगे तो पता चला बात बाहर निकल गई. Is that the reason, or is there some other rationale behind it?
So reason for even in assessment also to have not huge team is because as I mentioned, this job is more technical and legal. So original work is to be done by the IRS officer.
Right.
You cannot you are not supervisor here. You are the original worker. So for example, if you'll see, I'm preparing a case for a search operation. Understanding nitty-gritty of accounts, understanding, let's say if something is happening through some via share market, some transaction has happened and you can find escapement because of that. If share market operations are being used for that. it is hyper technical, it
Hmm.
cannot be investigated by, I mean, you need to have acquire certain technical skills.
Right.
So you are an original worker, your team is basically assisting you. They assist very well, but because you are original worker, you don't need like hundreds of people
बहुत
who
delegate
are
करने की
working
जरूरत
and
नहीं
who
है.
will give you. So in that is the reason why we don't have huge teams.
Got it. आपने जो बताए कि बहुत सारे टाइप के टैक्स इवेजन के केसेस आपने खुद हैंडल किए हैं, देखे हैं, बोथ आई थिंक असेसमेंट के समय भी कुछ निकल के आए होंगे, बट ऑब्वियसली इन्वेस्टिगेशन में बहुत सारे देखे हैं. क्या हमारे व्यूअर्स को बता सकते हैं व्हाट आर सम ऑफ द कॉमन प्रैक्टिसेस जो दिखी कि यार ये तो बहुत कॉमनली लोग करते आते हैं टैक्स इवेट करने के लिए, कुछ ऐसे बहुत ही इंजेन्युइन और यूनिक टाइप ऑफ केसेस भी आपने आई एम श्योर देखे होंगे. सो इफ यू कैन टेल अस फॉर आवर व्यूअर्स कि किस टाइप के लोगों ने कुछ किए हुए हैं ऐसे.
सबसे इजी जो है टैक्स इवेजन का टेक्निक बिजनेस में ये होता है कि यू इंक्रीज द एक्सपेंसेस. सो रेवेन्यू इज योर टॉप लाइन, expenses will determine your bottom line. You squeeze the profit by increasing the bottom line.
Right.
So bogus expenses एक बिल्कुल
गलत बिल फाल,
गलत एम्प्लॉई को सैलरी कम देना और मतलब बैंक में दे देना, बाद में कैश में ले लेना. दिस bogus expenses in various businesses is a way to evade tax. Then apart from this, you can also do out of books transactions. So these are less, but this happens. So you don't show them in the books, you transact with the people and you don't report simply. Like my example is, no, I'm running a hotel maybe and I'll not report that I've sold a room today. I'll not put it in my record. So if someone has, something has not entered, that is why it is called out of books. Out of books. If something has not entered my books, it will not be reported. Right. So that revenue, whatever expense will be booked in any case, but the revenue from that will be my escaped income. Correct. So that is one way. But then there are specific, it's difficult to recall many, but this is one part, escapement of income. If I'll recall some specific instances, very unique ones, I'll tell you, but there's other part to it also. The escaped income has to be brought back to be invested again. अच्छा, हाँ, वो भी होता होगा, I think. So most often you catch escapement of income when it is coming back to the books. Okay. It's difficult to catch the when it is going out. It is easier to catch when it comes back. So earlier it was coming generally in the form of this capital reserves. So what are capital reserves? Capital reserves are like you have opened a company. We both have opened a company of 1 lakh rupees. We have invested 1 lakh rupees. The share capital is only 1 lakh rupees that is invested by us. This company is 50,000, 1 lakh rupee company. But then after opening this company, we take some money from other people that will allot shares to you as well. Or maybe we'll only invest it and take like 1 crore rupee. And that money is not allotted to anyone. It remains in reserve only. That's why it's reserve only. It is not becoming share capital. It's lying there only for tens of years. So this money generally used to be, not for the, properly working companies, but shell companies usually used to bring back money like this only. Okay. So if you see small share capital and very large capital reserve, that was a red flag. अच्छा, so इस टाइप के डेटा बैक डिसीजन मेकिंग में आप लोग फिर देखते होंगे. Then other thing is unsecured loans. अच्छा. Unsecured loans similar. Whatever is crediting into your balance sheet, which is suspicious. So unsecured loan, if you are taking a loan from a bank of 20 crore or something, it is from bank and it's very difficult to get. But if you are taking 20 crore of loan from some money lender, money lender, not even money lender, when you check that person, you see that he's not filing even return and you're taking 10 crore. So these are the typical, these are a very common way of bringing. So right. I think, as I told you, while income is escaping, it's rather difficult. While income is being brought back, eventually you will bring back the the escaped income to your books because you want to invest money there. Yeah. So there it's easier, especially if someone is trained like that. So they can any credit in your balance sheet. So while it is escaping, you have to see profit and loss account. Right. Because it is affecting your expenses or your revenue. Yes. When it is coming back, you have to look at the balance sheet. So finding issues in balance sheet is easier. So therefore जब आता है पैसा वापस, तब it's easier to catch. In balance sheet में आया credit हो गया. So that is easy. But then these are very generic examples. And very generic across industries. There are industry specific ways of escapement of income, and unique ways are being developed. There are many things.
राइट. सो नाउ दैट मान लीजिए कोई केस आया कि कुछ गड़बड़ हो रही है एंड सर्च एंड सीजर ऑपरेशन करने जाना है. सो बिकॉज हमने बहुत सुन लिया, आई थिंक व्यूअर्स वुड लव टू नो व्हाट गोज इनटू द प्रिपरेशन ऑफ द सीन. क्या क्या करते हैं, द डिपार्टमेंट कैसे प्रिपेयर होता है, व्हाट ऑल थिंग्स आर टेकन केयर ऑफ सो दैट लीगली नथिंग इज अनटूवर्ड आल्सो, एंड कोई सवाल ना उठा दे कि क्यों किया, गलत प्रोसीजर से फॉलो किया है, ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स.
So department, this is set procedure for conduct. It cannot be random कि मैं आज उठाऊं मैंने बोला नहीं इस पे करना है, नहीं, nothing like that. It takes months or even sometimes years of work. So what happens is there are two sources majorly for information through which you prepare a case for search and seizure. One is information which you extract from their return or information that has been pushed to you through STR, TPs or anything. Other is information from some individual. Like someone is in the market, he knows there's a lot of escapement, he comes and tells you, then you verify it and then proceed, then you take out their return and then verify and do it. So step one is looking at that specific escapement allegation that you're looking at. First step should be, it's typically you look at that only that transaction. Then you assess the escapement or alleged escapement is large enough, because you are conducting entire search operation where a lot of manpower will be deployed. Government, it will cost government a lot. So escapement should be commensurate. 1 लाख के escapement वाले पे अगर allegation है तो मैं नहीं कर सकता हूँ, because it's very costly operation. So that thing goes in. After that, I do a 360 degree. Who are the related parties? What are other issues in the case? So you, unlike assessment, you are not limited to only one issue or one individual. Then you see, because how economy works, there's so many linkages in the business. So you look at those linkages, you look at other issues which may crop up, and you look at the other entities which are involved. So you typically look at the bank account statements for the flow of cash, flow of money, where how money is being rotated. Then after working on this, you bring out the individuals and entities which you wish to be covered, and most importantly, the premises. I might be covering individual A, but if I'm not covering his house, I'm not covering him in reality. So these three things are very important. Premises, which are to be covered, individuals and entities. I prepare a note which is a satisfaction note that I'm satisfied. I have to enumerate everything. It goes through the entire hierarchy, it is checked, and there should be, allegation should be serious. There should be specific individuals you are naming. You cannot be very generic about it. You cannot write that there are certain individuals are doing this. You have to write A is doing this, B is doing this, and I have reasons to believe that this is being this escapement of income is taking place. Then you think about the operational side of it, because till now we were only being technical, but when you go into the real world, you have to think about the operations as well. So you have to decide the right timing when you want to conduct that operation. So typically you do it in the very morning. Why? Because at that time, individuals are most likely to be at their residences or their respective places. If you'll go during the daytime, you are not sure, they may be outside somewhere. Then you have to also ensure that that individual is not outside the country or outside the city to cover him. So these precautions you have to take, which are operational in nature. Now, no more technical, just operational. Then you have to think about how many teams you wish to have, how many individuals in each team you want to have. From where you
किस टाइप के लोग जाते हैं आपके साथ पूरी टीम में?
Now what happens is a case is prepared by one deputy director.
Okay.
But when the operation takes place, there are other deputy directors in the investigation wing. Like in Delhi, there are multiple. You requisition them as well.
Okay.
They don't know about the case till the day of operation. Only you know about it. It is your operation. But to make it work on that day of search, you bring in like 5, 7, 8 people, depending on the premises. Then other assessing officers also you can bring from, not assessing officer, authorized officers from different verticals also you can requisition for the operation. So what happens is you prepare it, you get the warrant signed through the competent authority, then you are ready for the day of search.
And just for the clarity, जो आप कह रहे हैं warrant signed is from generally judiciary.
No.
Or are there?
It's inside only.
Okay.
Internal only. So
Okay.
yeah, within department only, principal director of income tax is.
So that's the competent authority.
Yes, he's competent authority.
Okay.
So we don't need approval of judiciary for that.
Okay.
If he's satisfied, his satisfaction is sufficient.
Okay.
So just before the day of this, and then I have to decide about vehicles as well, which is also equally important.
Achha,
Because we have to run, because there would be 50 vehicles required, and I have to requisition vehicles in a manner that this guy who is supplying vehicles or the drivers will not leak about it.
Oh, right. Yes.
So operation on that day is even more difficult than the technical thing. And as I told you, we have only 4 or 5 inspectors at our disposal. So at that time you feel, yeah, manpower crunch is there. Till your job is technical, legal, it is fine. The day it becomes administrative, operational, you realize you have such a few number of people at your disposal. Anyways, then you, on the day of operation, it typically, such operation typically begins at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Achha.
So teams will leave early in the morning. And not generally, you have to do it. You prepare a brief for each premises, and you tell them what to look at, who are the key individuals, and also you'll definitely provide the details of the premises where they are going. So each officer who is authorized officer for a premise, for a residence, for a business, will be having a brief.
Okay.
So on that day, the person who has prepared the case will become conducting officer. So he's conducting this operation, but he'll not typically be at any premise. He'll be at the control room.
That's my next question. So आप एक center पे रहोगे कहीं?
You will be at center. He'll be coordinating with everyone. He's conducting officer, and he'll guide them. He'll take inputs from them, what is happening at each premise, and like this. And the individuals who are going there, so you have to first, now the team which is at the premise, they have to also now brainstorm about not legal things or technical things, about operational things also. How to enter the premise. So we are doing something which is, against entire system. The entire system is built for us, how to stop people from intruding into our properties without us knowing.
Yeah.
We have to do exactly that. We have to enter the premise without them knowing that we are entering. Because if they get alarmed, they might destroy any specific evidences. So this typically is the most challenging part, how to enter the premise. So you have all the alarm systems in, most of the high rises, there's such security, and they want every detail. They'll call the occupant that this person is coming to you. So I think most ingenuity of officer is required there. You have to quickly make decision how to, if situation is out of control, you have to quickly announce that I am income tax officer, allow me in. Otherwise, you might delay. You might take an alibi. But if it is not working for, let's say 5-10 minutes, the person whom you are targeting might be aware already. So then you might have to decide, leave everything aside, alibi. Now I have to declare I am income tax officer, allow me in. Otherwise, I'll.
अच्छा, तो पहले एक तरह से secretly कुछ अलग identity दे करके जाने की कोशिश करते हैं कि मैं.
Generally we try that. It's not. It depends on. Again, it's individual territory. It's upon me now. I have to decide what to do. Right. Depending on the premise. If I think this is the right, this decision is entirely mine. How to enter. The goal is clear. The individual should, as far as possible, not know that who I am. I might tell them I am from another department, from health department, for survey, dengue survey also. We do that, but obviously the other side is also equally smart. Most often that doesn't work. So, but you have to be quickly on your toes to reveal yourself also, because then they will understand there will be consequences. So that is the thing. So after you enter the premise, you take control, you declare them, you tell them, you show your identities, and then you take control of the premise. Taking control of premise is like, now you have to ensure that nothing happens there without your knowledge.
Right.
No communication takes place without your knowledge. So that is solely because you want to ensure that no one else is alarmed who is having some sensitive information.
So how is that enabled? मतलब क्या phone काट दिए जाते हैं, jammer लगा दिया, मतलब how is that operationalized?
We take phone.
अच्छा, phone ले लेते हैं.
And if there's some line, we ensure that it is for that time being, it's not functional. Not functional, or someone will sit with it.
Okay.
And while conducting this, because we are not just concerned about one premises, there might be 50 premises. We have to ensure that the entry in the premises at the same time.
अच्छा ऐसा भी है.
Because it might happen that I'm delayed by 5 minutes and I'm striking at 7 a.m. and someone else is striking at 8 a.m. This guy in 5 minutes might alarm them. So it is very important to enter at the same time in all premises, because
that requires a lot of coordination.
Yeah, that requires a lot of coordination. So that's what I'm telling you. At that day, technical and legal issue takes backseat. Operational administrative work purely, and it is the most interesting. I think it's the most challenging and interesting part of this.
मुझे स्पेशल 26 मूवी का पूरा एक तरह से मूवी सीन जैसी चीजें याद आ रही है, इसी टाइप की चीजें उन लोगों ने भी दिखाया था उसमें.
In touch wood, we are not special 26, so sometimes people suspect that also, and I have very clear protocol for that. I show my ID card, I show everything online about my name in the civil list and everything, so that makes clear. So yeah, but it is challenging at that time, and sometimes it gets very challenging.
Very challenging. Yeah. So can you tell us now some instances which obviously you can disclose for the public discourse, जहाँ पे कुछ interesting anecdotes रहे हो, कुछ interesting type का आप लोग ने, so I'm sure that कहीं पर आपने coordinate किया होगा, कहीं पर आप गए होंगे as an authorized personnel, so either of those instances that you can quote to us.
There's one which is, I think, will be funny for most of you. There are a lot, but I think I can at least tell 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So there was this business premises in Delhi only. So we were targeting, I was authorized officer and I had 6-7 number of people around me, inspectors. So our goal was to enter it, as I told you, without them knowing about it. We reached at the gate. So there was a huge iron gate. We could see through it inside. So there was this guard. We told him, open the door, we are from police. Or I can't recall that exactly we told him. But this guy was somewhere, I think, mentally challenged. So he didn't respond properly.
Achha.
And there was a dog in the cage just behind him. The dog was barking at us. So we were losing precious time because we don't know who is inside. We can not let him go inside without opening the door. I think he was telling us that he's not having key or something. He was not opening the gate. And we were losing time. I think 5 minutes had already passed like this. So I told my team member, now it's critical time, like quick decision. I said, now jump in through the gate. But it so happened that all were hesitant and no one was jumping. So I got frustrated with them. Immediately, I think in 2 or 3 minutes, I jumped in myself. The moment I jumped in, another dog came barking from here, which was open.
Oh.
Meanwhile, one of my teammates, looking at me, my confidence, jumped inside me and he was standing beside me. Now, right at that moment, we realized the cage is open and this dog also came out. Now I was in front of 2 dogs barking at 2 meters away from me. So for that split second, it's interesting how human brain works. My brain got shut off. It was like I resigned myself to the reality that I'll be bitten by dogs. But I was wondering they'll bite and leave or bite and pull. I was wishing that former will be the case. And I was slightly relieved that I was wearing jeans on that day, not the formal trousers, because jeans are thicker. So, in that split second, I was thinking about these calculations, that how less I'll be harmed. Meanwhile, the other guy was also with me and we were at the same time shouting at the security guard. Thankfully, that security guard got hold of the situation. He took the 2 dogs. I don't know how it happened. And both of them were put in the cage. And on that day, I decided I'll never do that again. I decided. After that, I never did that. And I realized you are a team leader. You should not do that. Another interesting stuff is, obviously, entering a premise is the biggest challenge, taking control of the premise. So I was leading another team which was going to the residence of a very, very high profile person. So we were very sure that there will be huge security and there will be very difficult, it will be very difficult entry for all of us. So before search also for a couple of days, me and my seniors were discussing how you'll do. They were saying, Kavinder, can you do it? I said, sir, I'll do that. And then that person used to go to play golf in the early morning. Okay. So our idea was to reach at his premise before that. So my team had surveyed about when the security guards change, what all movement happens before he leaves for the golf. So a lot of deliberation. The most important point was how to enter his house. So on the date of action as well, in the morning, we reached the location 1 hour before the strike time. It might be around 6 a.m. or so. So we were discussing, me and my team, how we'll do it. If there's a need to climb the gate, I decided, no, I'll not do that. So we had ensured there's no dog inside, but still I decided not to jump. And, so much pressure on the single pressure. Largest pressure was how to enter this high-profile person, because he's such a high-profile person. We knew there will be a lot of security problems in entering his bungalow. When the exact moment arrived, we found the gate was open. The two guards were snoring loudly. We walked right past them. We went to the main structure. Front gate was locked. We went to the back gate, which was open. We went into his living room. Then tried 2-3 rooms. One room's bedroom was open, lock was open. We entered, and right there he was sleeping, and we were right in his bedroom, and we were waking him up.
What was the reaction like?
His reaction was very, very cool, still cool. He was very calm. One thing is that he was very calm, but it is very funny because that was our biggest challenge, how to do it, and we were right there at his bedroom.
And आपने इतना कुछ सोच के आए थे कि ये करेंगे वो करेंगे, इनको जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी. सब
surprising, extremely surprising that nothing was required. And the poor chap, the security guards who were sleeping, some of my team member told the occupant that they were sleeping in the morning. So I think they must have been fired by the time we left. So these are very, very funny incidences. But again, sometimes, on a serious note, it gets very difficult at times. When you are at the premise, obviously you take control of the premise, but you take control of all the issues of the premise as well. So sometimes there are medical emergencies.
Okay.
And there are sometimes no medical emergencies, but it is portrayed that there is a medical emergency.
अच्छा, ये क्या है, मतलब what is?
So again, when you have entered that premise, there will be every attempt to put pressure on you. So medical emergency is something which puts a lot of pressure on a person who is there. So you have to decide, you have to provide medical services as well. You have to allow them to go. So it becomes very challenging. At times, certain individuals behave in a very cynical manner as well.
अच्छा, ऐसे क्या हुआ है, मतलब any?
One person was running to jump from his window multiple times. 3 people had to hold him back. So that was one very interesting part. He was not obviously the main person, but he was working under the main person somewhere. So he was constantly, he was living at, I think, 7th floor in a high rise. He was constantly running towards his window and trying to jump out of the house. I don't know if it was a mere threat or reality, but I was scared because I didn't anticipate that it could also happen till that point of time. So apart from this, search operations are also challenging because you have woken up at 4 in the morning and you are working constantly throughout the day. And you are not only looking at operational things. Now you have to look after technical and legal things. After entering the premise, you have to find the evidences. You have to understand the what is important, what is not important, digitally or physically.
What's the process of search there? में क्या-क्या चीजें ढूंढ रहे होते हैं? Like, is there a checklist? किस टाइप की चीजें ढूंढ रहे होते हैं? And yeah, if you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
It depends on the case. So in the brief, everything is mentioned.
Achha.
So protocol is after you do after you get the control of the premise, you have to look at the brief. In the brief, it would be mentioned who is the main person at your premise, what is to be asked from him, what are the evidences you should look for. There might be intelligence about cash being at a premise. There might be intelligence of not cash, but some important information on a hard disk or on mobile phone. There might be certain important communication that individual has done with certain other individuals. So it depends entirely on the case what becomes important. But as a rule, as a norm, you look at entire house, you check all the things, you don't know what you'll find. So you have to ensure that everything in the house has been seen by you.
Okay.
Yeah. That is called rummaging. So you have to go through all the stuff. You have their books, bookshelves, their almirah, everything.
सब कुछ में. So what's been the longest time duration that you have spent on a search and seizure operation? क्योंकि I'm sure बहुत बड़े घर भी हो सकते हैं, बहुत टाइम लग सकता है ढूंढने में.
Not solely because of huge being large premise, but due to operational issues, we have spent 15 days as well.
15 days?
But not completely at one place.
Of course.
Yeah, but one operation ran for 15 days as well. Typically, I have spent 3-4 days at a stretch at one premise.
So एक चीज को मतलब हर एक particular document, हर एक particular hard disk. So I'm sure that computer experts वगैरह भी जाते होंगे आप लोग के साथ.
Yeah, yes. So we have agencies, paneled agencies, which look after the forensic part of the
Okay,
work.
the forensic team.
But their work is limited to digging out the information. Obviously, that information has to be perused, looked after, and built into evidence by the officer of the department. But yes, we have external help for accessing the data. They come on the premise here. Yeah, and we take backup of most of the data, mobile phones, laptops with us, which are handled in the post-search operation, which is equally important. Might be not as exciting, but equally important, because you have taken tons loads of data, you have conducted an operation. Now responsibility lies solely on your shoulder, because till now it's an allegation. Now your work will prove whether it is your allegation was right or wrong. So you have the hypothesis. It's not theory. You have to prove the theory. So
Prove the theory.
main work starts from after completion of the search operation.
Yes.
And personally, I like that work a lot. So you produce a report called appraisal report for each search operation. In that report, you begin by the allegations. You talk about your findings. You talk about you logically explain the evidences and connect them, the dots. So I liked it. I felt it like you are writing a very logical. So there are two moments which are exciting. One is when you find something in the file or during the search at the premise. That is eureka moment. And then there's another high you get when you write the report. When you feel that you have logically presented, you have demonstrated everything properly. So that is one of the high moments. Like as an IRS officer, I really, that was what I'll say, a high point. I really loved writing that appraisal report. I really loved writing a logical, explaining to a layman what has happened in this case, how this. So it's like a novel as well. It can be, it is a logical document explaining this, like publishing a research paper.
Kitne pages ki generally hoti hai typically?
It goes long, but length is often due to evidence also. But mine was, I think, 500 pages or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is generally thick. Yeah, so you have to, after the entire report, you have to conclude also what you were alleging.
Of course.
But the whole process of writing this report is very enriching.
Very interesting.
Very enriching. So I enjoyed it.
Right. So obviously, when such kind of an operation is going on, due process of law follow होना चाहिए, सब चीजें हो कि ताकि कोई बाद में ये ना बोल दे कि यहाँ पे excessive force use कर दिया या जो भी इस type. So what all checks are taken care of by the department to ensure that this type of allegations चाहे वो आए ही नहीं.
So first of all, you take police with you. Police is not only for your security. Police force is also to ensure that such allegations might not emanate. Generally, these allegations don't take place because our actions are very civilized actions. Very, very, I don't know why a lot of people have talked to me after seeing raid that like this. I don't know. We don't do that. We don't threaten anyone. That's not our business. We just go and talk politely, give these evidences, and largely people understand this largely. And we take also precaution like that. We have women in our team, lady officers or lady personals are definitely on our team to ensure that there's no allegation. And due process of law, basically, in the act, it is written what you have to do. And most of the people after, because when you go to the searches once or twice, you understand, what all is, you cannot hit someone. Yeah. That is not your authority. So you just abstain from it. Yeah. Otherwise, other things, you are within your right to take their statement. You are within your right to check their belongings. You are within your right to check their communications. Yeah. So largely it doesn't emanate. No.
Got it. Now, because we'll discuss about assessments, we discuss now about investigation. How has technology enabled all of this to become very easier for for the department to find such culprits and then bring them to justice? And how do you foresee now technology, even with AI and everything coming in the future, kind of aiding the income tax department?
I think it's arms race.
Achha.
While we are also improving our methods of gathering intelligence and conducting investigations, the escapement routes have also
increased. Yes.
So there are global networks also through which people conduct escapements. So yeah, but department as such takes help of all the latest tools. As I told you, we extract data. We extensively look at so in my experience, more than physical, digital evidences have been proven to be helpful. So yes, and we have certain, I believe, I'm not sure, we have certain AI tools also nowadays, which because we have huge data that we gather
Yes.
from the premises. Those through that data, mostly AI can easily or quickly bring out the important if you put in the right keywords and right commands.
Yeah.
So that is also, I believe, taking place. And apart from search and seizure operation, that kind of work is largely being done at systems. Huge development. We have very good tools which enable DDIT to find the information that you want. So you don't only need these tools post search. You need research also.
Yeah.
I need, if I want to understand an Indian entity, if it is having some interest in foreign entity, so that kind of tools also I have and I should have. So in that sense also we have very good tools at our disposal.
Understood. Right. Now coming to the latest posting that you have, which is the Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax in headquarters, you mentioned in Delhi, and taking care of administrative work here. So what is that role exactly looking like? I think you briefly mentioned at the beginning, but I think if you can elaborate a little bit more.
So for past 2 years, I've been working as Deputy Commissioner, Headquarters Administration. So as I told you, or I'll again elaborate. So the field formation of the department are divided among Principal Chief Commissioners.
Correct.
So Delhi has a Principal Chief Commissioner. I work under him. Obviously, I report to someone lower down the rank, but ultimately he is our boss.
Yes.
So the role of Principal Chief Commissioner is a cadre controlling authority. So he controls the cadre of IRS officer and other income tax employees lower down the hierarchy in Delhi. So naturally, a lot of administrative issues, a lot of personnel issues, a lot of generic work which constitutes the part of. So security is one part. I told you, welfare, repairs of the buildings, look after of everything. So it's largely administrative, not so again, if I'll distinguish between my previous postings, it's not technical legal, firstly, and it's not heavy on just one aspect. So I like have 10% of work. So one important aspect of cadre controlling is transfer postings of individuals, which are also financial, allotment to lower down the hierarchy, lower down the other charges is also done through our headquarters only. And I look and new projects, the residential or official projects, they are also taken care by our office.
Okay.
So it's I'll say it's one of the few very less posts in our department where you are typically working as an administrator.
Got it.
Administration.
I think within this, you also been part of organizing a lot of awards as well as Rozgar Melas. उसके बारे में थोड़ा बताएं कि ये सब क्यों होता है and what is the objective of doing this and what goes into organizing such things.
So yeah, I forgot because there's so many 5% things. So unlike investigation or assessment, I cannot summarize this post. So yeah, a large, rather a very important aspect of my work is organizing events. So one, you mentioned Rozgar Mela. Other is Income Tax Day that I organized. I have organized 3 Income Tax Days. I have organized, I think, 5-6 Rozgar Melas. So apart from this, a lot of other events of department where foreign dignitaries are visiting us. So my work is largely operational here as well. Okay. So I don't look after the content of the event, but I look after the that sound arrangement is proper, that the cards are being distributed properly to everyone, sitting arrangement. So more of operational work and the protocol is being followed. Income Tax Day, as I mentioned, is the flagship event of the department. It is conducted in Delhi. We have conducted in Vigyan Bhavan only for 3 years. So it is conducted because 24th July 24 July is Income Tax Day. So we have to have a flagship day of ours. Finance Minister presides over this. Honorable Finance Minister of India presides over this event. The challenges are that it's huge. Like we have around 1,500 participants. Okay. And then participants of stature of Finance Minister, Revenue Secretary, Honorable Minister of State for Finance. So rather than sheer number only, it's like you have to think about every small thing and every where the vehicles will come, where they'll be parked, who will escort whom, who will sit where. So it's
a complete end-to-end event management experience that
you got it right. It's event management. It's you have to acquire the skills of an event manager. You work with them, but you have to responsibility lies upon you. Right. So that is sheer number is there, but beyond sheer number, the kind of dignitaries that attend this makes it important. Then Rozgar Mela is flagship event of Honorable Prime Minister of India.
Right.
So this is like we distribute offer letters, letter of appointment to the newly freshly recruited employees.
Okay.
Through these events. So through this, we just invite all other departments. We'll be the nodal officer. Typically, we'll be the nodal office. We will organize it at a venue. We'll get details from other departments, how many individuals are being recruited by them, and then based upon this, we'll put the sitting arrangement at the venue. We'll coordinate with them. We'll coordinate with the minister who is coming to our premise as a chief guest. So again, income tax day, but at a lower scale and some more coordination with other department here.
Right. I think very interesting, gamut of experience you've had in the IRS service. Now that we've discussed a lot about the service, we discussed about your time in the service and different type of interventions that you've been part of. I think our viewers would love to know you a little bit more personally as well. So, would first like to know कि आपका childhood कैसा था? Which city, did you spend your childhood in?
My father was a decently placed person. He retired as a DIG from a paramilitary force. But yeah, I spent a lot of time. I'm from Himachal Pradesh. I spent a lot of time in, you can say, non-urban area, which is not typically village. So my childhood has been, I think the biggest challenge, if you can say, as I can now reflect upon my past, is more than being, the strata of hope, because I think I was privileged, but remoteness.
Yeah.
I think this is also a key area which should enter our public discourse. It's not just about the income level, because you could be at a higher income level, but if you are living at that remote area, so there will be other handicaps. So I have faced handicaps not of, you can say, income, but of remoteness. So I studied in Himachal. I did my 10th from there only, a non-urban area, you can say, and 11th. After 11th, I studied at Hamirpur in school, and then I joined NIT Hamirpur. I did my computer science engineering from there. I went on to do MBA from IIM Lucknow. After that, I worked in Gurgaon for 2 years, then SEBI. So when I look at my childhood, it is interesting because again, remoteness comes into play at some places. So our school, I think most of the teachers were not as competent. So they were, in that sense, early education development, there were challenges. But I can reflect now upon being closer to nature, which was very interesting. I don't know, कुछ बोलूं थोड़ा philosophical बोलूं?
हाँ, बोलिए ना, please.
So later on, I read Emile by Rousseau, where he talked about, he contrasts about French children of his time living in Paris and French children growing up in the countryside. So I relate to Emile. So I was brought up till 15, 16 years old. I brought up in more closer to nature. So I think that was in a way blessing for me. I spent some time with my father as well in camps, and I have memories of that as well. And I can also see that how that remoteness affects your aspirations as well. So I think I was not very clear about my aspirations till even while I was pursuing MBA. So I think those were certain handicaps as well, because I think someone who is studying in Delhi from the beginning will have better clarity about how to pursue their careers. I think the disassociation I felt after entering corporate world was exactly result of that remoteness in my upbringing and my mind as well from the actual working that takes place in the corporates. So that is the thing. By default, I used to climb mountains. So I love that. I continue to do that.
So वो बचपन से आपका वो शौक था, like climbing or basically.
So it was not shock as such at that time. It was compulsion. So my house was, I used to climb. I used to come back from school. I had to climb. For anything you have to climb. Our fields were there. So we sometimes used to go there. So in mountains, climbing mountain was not a choice. You had to do it. So I did it a lot. I enjoyed it as well, but it was not purely recreational thing for me till I did my graduation. After then only I took up it as a recreational work, recreational activity. Recently, I went to Everest Base Camp.
Yes, and I think काफी news में भी वो आया है.
Which I think got more coverage than it deserves, because it's just a trek. But yeah, it is a trek one should do. What I felt good about during the trek is that it is moderately challenging, and the view that you see there, you cannot see anywhere else. But a lot of people, my colleagues as well, asked about me. So it's not very challenging trek. I decided to do it. It's very interesting thing. I wanted to always do it, but there's an emotional part to it as well. I had a very good friend from my engineering days, very close friend who remained close during my career as well, though he was working in a private company. He died some 2 years back, 1.5 years back. So I left for Everest Base Camp exactly on the day when he died, after a year after he died, anniversary of his death. So I took his picture as well to the base camp. I clicked a picture in his memory because some time in the past we had discussed about going together to the base camp or Annapurna trek. So it was emotional well for me, emotional moment as well for me. Yeah.
So any future treks that you have in mind कि ये और करना है next?
I plan to do it, but I think it is increasingly difficult. I plan to climb Bandar Poonch.
Okay.
It's not a trek; it's actually a climb expedition. So, but I'm not getting time to get technical certificate.
Got it.
Otherwise, all other things are lined up for me. But yeah, definitely. If not this year, next year, I'll definitely climb at least a 6,000 first.
Oh,
so
wow.
that is what my aim is. That is where I'm gravitating to.
Okay. Yeah. So apart from trekking and mountain climbing, so to say, what are your other interests? I think one is literature. I think you mentioned at the beginning of when you were discussing before the podcast. So could you tell what are the other interests of yours?
Actually, very recently I read a quote by Bertrand Russell in his book Conquest of Happiness. It goes like this: the secret of happiness is this: keep your interests as wide as possible, and your reaction to people that interest you friendly rather than hostile.
Okay.
I read it very recently, a year back or so, but I think I followed it in toto from for the last decade or 1.5 decade. So I have many interests. I read history, philosophy, which is concerned to nothing that I do in my office, and I do photography, but wildlife photography I'm trying, and landscape. But yeah, there I'm not very. I can't say that I've progressed a lot. I am like intermediate level only. But yeah, I've read a lot. I've been reading. I've read, I think, almost entire Tolstoy. I have to find a book of Tolstoy that I haven't read, and I've read a lot of Russell, a lot of Dawkins. And yes, during the COVID pandemic, I was jokingly tell people when first pandemic came, I finished a long-held, my long-held desire was to read Gibbon's 6 volumes of Decline and Fall of Roman Empire.
Okay.
That I consumed.
Wow.
And I was very happy that I consumed. I am halfway through Durant's Story of Civilization.
Okay.
I think I've completed 5 or 6 volumes. So yes, I generally love history and philosophy. I've read Plato, Aristotle. I've read Spinoza.
Okay.
So I do read a lot. I quote them a lot, and I like them a lot.
Yeah. Who is your favorite or philosopher, so to say, or even an historical figure?
Philosopher, I think there are many philosophers who will interest you, but I have to give it to Spinoza. Very less understood, very less talked about in the outside the philosophical circle, but he's the archetype of your philosopher. So he writes something which a casual reader will not understand, which is the number one criteria for a philosopher. Not only in a funny sense, but in a serious sense as well. Yeah. So he talks about grand issues, which is also one of the things that a typical philosopher should do. And he lived a life in conformity with his belief. His book, Ethics, is a very thin book. I tried to read it twice, but didn't understand much. Then I read commentaries on it. So then only I was able to understand it. I think I have to give it to Spinoza because I think he is the archetype of philosopher.
Yeah. And in terms of a historical figure, who are you highly inspired by?
I'm inspired by, I think somewhere their personality merges, because recently I've read a lot about both of them, Gandhi and Tolstoy. Mahatma Gandhi and Tolstoy, I think it is very difficult to separate one from the other. Both of them were horrified by their individualistic instincts and the real life problems. Both of them had very high moral standards. Both of them believed in twin, rather inseparable ideas of truth and non-violence. And both of them wrote not horrific, but things which might not be palatable to the people about themselves. Tolstoy wrote his Confessions, where he wrote about his life as a young man, where he did a lot of things which are not acceptable. And Gandhiji wrote In My Experiment with Truth about himself. So I think these two are, historically speaking, these two are doing something which was very honest, very selfless, and almost unachievable for most of us. So historically, I think I have to give it to the two of them.
I think quite inspiring and wholesome hearing about both of them. Yeah. As we come to the last section of the podcast, basically we have a rapid fire round. So I'll be asking a few questions, and whatever comes to your mind immediately, would love to hear from you. And we can take, I think, 5-6 of those questions. Right. So the first question is: are you a morning person or a night owl? Morning person. All right. Do you prefer a phone call or a text message?
Text message.
Any specific reason?
Okay, I'll explain first one as well.
Yeah,
I'm a morning person because I want to finish all my workout routine in the morning in first 1 hour. And I have to drop my son to school. So for that, I have to get up early. Second, text I prefer because, I find it difficult to talk every time, because in text you can just go to the business, this is that. So in call, I think call takes a toll on you, while talking takes a toll on you.
Yeah. Next is, what is that one superpower that you would like to have, and why?
सुपर पावर ही होनी चाहिए क्योंकि कभी सोचा ही नहीं ऐसा एक्सट्रीम रेस्टलिज्म में जीता हूं मैं तो
I think then
to know the heart of people, heart of other people, what is going in their hearts.
In their hearts, yeah. What is your favorite movie of all time?
12 Angry Men.
Okay. What is your favorite book that you have read?
War and Peace, Tolstoy.
And a favorite travel destination?
Yasnaya Polyana, Tolstoy's hometown.
Okay. Okay. Have you been there?
I want to go.
You want to go? Okay. Got it. I think that is it from our end. Thank you so much, Kavinder ji, for sparing time for this episode today. It was a pleasure talking to you. And if you have any parting message to our viewers, we would love to have that.
I think again, because you mentioned that I read philosophy a lot, so I'll say this only, that I think I'll leave with a quote by Spinoza, as we mentioned him earlier as well. He writes somewhere in his book that the highest activity a human being can achieve is learning for understanding, because to understand is to be free.
Quite powerful. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Venkatesh.
Thanks a lot for watching this episode of Sushasan. अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आई हो तो do not forget to like, share and comment. And for more such content, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon.